Hi, I'm Nathan from Serious Geeks, and this video is going to be a Tactica covering Space Marine Chaplains. It's been a while since I've done a Tactica, so thank you for sticking with me, guys. I'm looking forward to getting this one out the door. So on with the show. I'm going to start with the stat line as normal. There's actually three types of chaplains that we mainly concern ourselves with. That is the Primaris Chaplain on a bike, the Terminator Chaplain, and then the Power Armoured Chaplains that are grouped together as they're on foot, and they're fairly similar. The most likely of these you will see in most competitive circumstances or even in casual games, just due to the new models being released, is the Primaris Chaplain on a bike. So we're going to start with that one. It's easy to see why this one is head and shoulders above most chaplain choices in most people's minds, and that is because it has a movement of 14 and a mountain of wounds. It has 7 wounds. This means the chaplain can get pretty much anywhere on the table within a turn. It can provide its benefit to whoever you want on that basis, on your terms, and he's very survivable. He has an inbuilt invulnerable save, which we'll go over in his special rules later. So combined with a toughness of 5, 7 wounds is very difficult to shift off the table. He's a character, remember, so he's not going to be as easy to target if you have other units around him. And you have a model that is a mainstay of the army. It's going to be a linchpin to your ability to boost up your capability of individual units, all for a fairly moderate points cost. His war gear, common to all Primaris Chaplains, he has an Absolver pistol, which is a strength 5 minus 1 AP and damage 2 pistol. That's not a bad pistol to have. It's okay, and in a pinch it could be useful. Crucially, being on a Primaris bike, this model does have access to a twin-linked bolt rifle. Up to 30 inches, strength 4 minus 1 AP. That's not too bad. It does contribute to your firepower, and you should never count out bolter shot. Common to all types of chaplains, this is immutable. They have a Crotius Arcanum. This is a melee weapon that has a strength plus 2, so generally it's going to be strength 6. Minus 1 AP, which is not brilliant, but not terrible. I mean, it contributes. Against Marines, it's a 50-50 chance of suffering a wound, and it does 2 damage, which is quite good. We like 2 damage. It puts a Marine down in 1 blow, potentially, and it can contribute, when you're strength 6, to damaging higher toughness enemies that could potentially be quite difficult to face otherwise. Putting 2 wounds off something is quite useful. So, stat line wise, we've looked at the Primaris Chaplain on a bike. Now let's look at the Terminator Chaplain. This is another good one. He has a toughness slightly lower than the Primaris Chaplain on a bike, of being just a mere 4, but he does have 5 wounds, which is fairly decent. A 2+ armor save, which is very good, and obviously that's coupled with the fact that all chaplains have a 4+ Rosarius save, which is an invulnerable. So the main difference obviously being the movement value. They're both comparable when it comes to survivability. The movement value is a massive difference, 14 compared to 5. It's quite a slow moving model, the Chaplain and Terminator armor, but it does have a benefit, and the benefit it does have is being able to teleport. Teleport Strike is an ability that all Terminators can take advantage of, and if you do have other Terminators in your army, you might want to accompany them with a Chaplain and Terminator armor. What this does is provide you with a fairly tanky model that can boost up the models around him right in the enemy areas. To me, that would be the best reason to take a Chaplain and Terminator armor. The survivability is basically comparable to a Chaplain on a bike, but he has the ability to circumnavigate any enemy units that may be blocking, say, a Primaris Chaplain from getting to your other units to be able to support them, the ones that are teleport striking in. On that note, we have the usual Chaplains, which can have jump packs. They've got the most meagre stat line, having only 4 wounds and 3 attacks. The Primaris version, which is on foot, has the Absolver pistol, which these ones don't, but has an extra attack and an extra pip of wounds. So the armament of these 3 last chaplains is an Absolver bolt pistol for the Primaris Chaplain, Storm Bolter for the Chaplain and Terminator armor, which is quite good, and an ordinary bolt pistol for a Chaplain. Obviously he has access to things such as Combi Weapons and plasma pistols, things like that, as well as a jump pack. Additionally, because the model can have one, you can also have a Power Fist, but I don't think many people are going to take a Power Fist when you have a Crotius Arcanum. Similarly, Chaplain and Terminator armor can have Combi Weapons, which is quite nice. You can give them, say, a Combi Melter for an extra melter shot, Combi Flamer if you want to do a little bit extra damage to a Horde unit. Overall, though, the Storm Bolter is more than enough, especially as he'll be accompanying other models on the drop. But it's nice to have options for an additional melter shot, for example. Just a quick note on the chaplain with a jump pack. It might seem a no-brainer to give a chaplain a jump pack so he can move a decent amount of distance each turn, 12 inches, and he can also drop in from death from above, like what the chaplain in Terminator armor will do, but he's not as survivable, and he's actually more points. So, to be honest, most people will not bother with that. It's either a chaplain in Terminator armor or a Primaris chaplain on a bike. But there is a slight option if you want to have a chaplain keeping up with your, say, Blood Angels Death Company and Vanguard Veterans. You might want a chaplain on a jump pack to accompany them because they can jump over things, etc. But for the most part, the Primaris chaplain on a bike will fulfill that role. He'll also fulfill that role for only 10 points more expensive, and he'll have an extra pip of attacks, an extra pip of toughness, and he'll have 3 extra wounds, better weapons. It's pretty much a no-brainer at that point. It's either a chaplain in Terminator armor or a chaplain on a bike when it comes to fast moving or teleport striking. Lastly, just as a side note, I usually don't bother going into it because it's not that important, but frag and crack grenades available to all chaplains bar the chaplain in Terminator armor. It's very rare that you will ever use them. You might use a crack grenade if you're in power armor, but ultimately you're probably, it's probably negligible. A little sneaky crack grenade's not too bad, but overall that's not why you're taking a chaplain. So, moving on to the abilities. Angels of Death, as can be expected, common to all chaplains. Teleport Strike for the Terminator armoured version. You'll get Death from Above if you give your chaplain jump pack. All of them, as I mentioned, will have a Rosarius. It's a 4+ invulnerable save. It's very good. It's pretty much the benchmark when it comes to the defense, so it's great to have a model that has it. It obviously benefits a model with a larger number of wounds over other models, but still, at the end of the day, it's a decent amount of defense for any chaplain. Space Wolf players have the Wolf Priest keyword added to each of them as per the ability section, and the Terminator version will have the Deathwing keyword available for the Dark Angels. In a similar vein, the Primaris chaplain on a bike will have the Ravenwing version for Dark Angels. He also gets Turbo Boost, which is, as you can probably expect, an extra 6 movement if he tries to advance instead of D6. Again, that's quite useful, especially if you need to get him into position and he's not expecting a charge that turn. Remember, White Scars have got sneaky ploys that enable them to actually advance and charge, although you probably use it for a different kind of unit than a one-off model, but it's an option. All chaplains get Spiritual Leaders. Chapter core units within 6 of this model, they get to use this model's leadership characteristic, which for the most part is going to be slightly better than whatever they have. Leadership of 9. Obviously, Ultramarines would boost it up to 10, but the difference is still the same because they would have +1 themselves, being Ultramarines. That's not too bad. It could be useful in a pinch, and it could give people a little bit of immunity, especially in small squads, to having to take morale checks that they can potentially fail. Now, the main reason you're going to take a chaplain, though, is for the priest ability. It's amazing. All chaplains know the Litany of Hate and one other litany from the Litanies of Battle. In your command phase, if this model is on the tabletop, you can recite one litany you know, if you haven't already been recited by another model, of course, and on a 3+, that litany is inspiring and takes effect until your next command phase. It's a really solid ability, and for that we'll probably go through the Litanies of Battle separately to review exactly what they do, because each one will have a slightly different application and give your chaplain a different purpose on the tabletop. Lastly, we'll go through the faction keywords. Imperium, Adeptus Astartes, Chapter, which is what you expect. Keywords, well, infantry, character, Primaris, priest, chaplain. Take away the Primaris part for the ordinary Terminator. Add the Primaris part for the bike. Take it away from the ordinary chaplain. It's fairly obvious. Biker gets added to the chaplain on the bike. Terminator gets added to the chaplain. It's what you expect. So next up, we'll go through the Litanies of Battle and how they're applicable to your army in general, and which chaplains would benefit from which ones at what times in the game. So to start off with, all chaplains have access to the Litany of Hate. This is an aura ability, chapter core or chapter character units which are within 6 of your priest, i.e. chaplain. Each time that model makes an attack in melee, they can reroll the hit roll. This is quite an old school Litany of Battle that they've always had. It's quite a good one. Enables you to reroll all your missed hits. It's pretty handy. However, I think it does get trumped by some of the other litanies, and you will see why, I think. First off is the Litany of Faith, another aura, chapter core, chapter character units within 6 of the priest. Each time that unit would lose a wound as a result of a mortal wound on a 5-up, that mortal wound is not lost. This one is quite specific, probably going to be not that useful unless you're up against Thousand Suns or Grey Knights. Maybe Eldari, when the Craft World get their new codex, I'll probably shoot around a load of mortal wounds. For an all-comers list, it's probably not going to see much use because you have to kind of plan for it, but it does have a bit of utility if you do come up against armies that have a lot of mortal wound output. Overall, I wouldn't see this in many lists. Catechism of Fire, really good one this one. Chapter core, chapter character units within 6 of the priest. Each time that model makes a ranged attack against the closest eligible target, add +1 to that attack's wound roll. That's actually really effective. You have to be quite aggressive with it. I mean, if you've got a gun line, you're just going to be, reactively firing at whatever unit is closest to your opponent to get the benefit. But if you say drop down, drop pod or jump out of a transport, bear with me, I will explain in a minute, or you advance on your targets, this could be a really good way of putting a lot of damage in the shooting phase on any desirable target. Now, I do know that you can't use a litany outside the command phase with the Chaplain standard, but there is a stratagem that will enable you to use it, so it becomes useful again. Bear with me, I'll go over that in the stratagem section. This one, Catechism of Fire, is very useful. It's something that I would put on my Chaplains with my grav cannons, my Terminators. Terminator's going to really enjoy wounding Space Marines on a 3+, especially in the Tactical Doctrine with a -1 and all those shots they get, 4 shots per model. Even against vehicles, they're going to be wounded on a 4+. 5+ against Toughness 8 vehicles is a really effective rule. And if you're up close dropping in with Terminators with a Chaplain in tow, it's a great one to use. Likewise, all those grav cannons wounding on a 4+ against enemy vehicles, 2 damage apiece. 2+ against infantry instead of a 3+. That's really effective. It really is. And it's totally worth using. Melter against Toughness 8 is going to be wounded on the 3+ using this. So again, it's really effective as a litany. Next one is Exploitation of Rage, chapter core, chapter character units within 6 of the priest, add +1 to their wound roll in melee. It's very useful, and it is a way of getting pseudo Blood Angels. I mean, Blood Angels aren't going to have as much benefit from this, but everyone else, for a single turn, you get to be a Blood Angel, and you get to add 1 to your wound rolls. Now imagine this on a big unit of Vanguard that are hitting the enemy, or a unit of Terminators, or Blade Guard with their Strength 5 plow swords. I mean, this has a lot of potential. Mantra of Strength. This one is usually used when you want a Smash Chaplain. Adds +1 to the priest's attacks and strengths. Adds +1 to the damage characteristics of the weapons that the priest is equipped with. Most people usually give this alongside a relic. That relic I'm referring to is the Benediction of Fury, +2 strength standard, -2 AP and damage 3. Causes a mortal wound on unmodified wound rolls of a 6. So essentially, with Benediction of Fury, Mantra of Strength, you've got a Chaplain that's going to be wounding a lot of targets on a 2+ with a damage 4 weapon. Lots of attacks. It's really effective. And it's not something I would go for myself because it seems a little bit reliant on the 3+ for your Litany of Battle. You're going to be spending command points, obviously, to get it to work automatically. But it's pretty good. And that damage 3 weapon is very effective. Of course, I would probably use a Captain for my smashing purposes with a Thunderhammer, but this is another option if you want the utility with a Mantra of Strength. Primaris in particular, who don't have access to Captains who drop in with Terminator armor or with jump packs, they don't have a fast moving model to take best advantage of it, can use a Primaris Chaplain on a bike and then get the benefit of all of his stat increases plus Mantra of Strength and a Benediction of Fury. It's quite a nice little way of creating a really powerful character. Next up is the Recitation of Focus. Chapter core, chapter character units noticing a theme within 6 of the priest, add +1 to their hit roll. It's easy to use. +1 to the hit roll is always going to be useful for 3+ to hit. Means that your heavy weapons are going to be hitting on a 2+. Your plasma incinerators are going to be hitting on a 2+. It's just a all-round good unit to use. You can even use this on things like dreadnoughts and then get a lot of 2+ hits. Redemptor Dreadnought would absolutely love this. And again, it's just a really nice, easy Litany of Battle to use. So it's well recommended if you're going to have a shooting focus. The last one is very specialised. Canticle of Hate. It's an aura ability. I love this one, but that's because I use a lot of Terminators and they drop in and teleport in. If this litany is inspiring, then while a friendly chapter core or chapter character unit is within 6 of the priest, they get to add +2 to their charge roll. One thing that a lot of people don't realise, it also enables you to move an additional 3 inches for a pile-in or consolidation move, which is actually a great way of just managing to get into close combat with some models, but then you get even more of your guys up the table alongside the chaplain. Now, I would use this with a mass teleport attack. Chaplain goes down first. You have to be careful as you use it. Obviously, you can't use it in the command phase. You have to use it with stratagem support. So you'd spend in command points to use it, but it is very useful. It means that your Terminators are going to be very likely to get into close combat, and you can spend another command point to re-roll any failed charges as well. Expensive in command points, but could be game breaking. Particular combination I have is 10 Relic Terminators dropping down, Boltering, Reaper Autocannon, and Mastercrafted Plasma Blaster against one target, slightly further away. They have a captain with a Thunder Hammer and Storm Shield alongside them. The chaplain drops in with them. He gives them all the boost. They make their charges first, and then if the chaplain doesn't make it in, it's not the end of the world. But I save the rerolls for the other guys. And at that point, I've just basically flooded the opponent on my terms with a really powerful close combat unit and a lot of wounds that they can't easily chew through. It's a really powerful 1-2 punch, and it's something I really recommend. For people who are foot slogging, it's not quite as useful because the range is, you can't always tell if the range is going to be useful. You could potentially move closer anyway and not have to worry. But if you've got a slightly longer charge than what you might feel comfortable with, this could be a very useful way of getting into close combat. Blade Guard, for example, they might be 9-10 inches away and you might be like, oh, I'm never going to reach the opponent. You use the Canticle of Hate, and all of a sudden they're able to make that charge with a reroll, and it can be game breaking. It can change the way the face of the game actually turns. I've mentioned stratagems a few times, so we'll go into that. Obviously, there's the usual stratagems that you can use. Fury, the first, works on a Terminator Chaplain, although you'd probably spend it on other Terminator armed troops that you might have. Same as transhuman physiology. You might want to keep your Chaplain alive, but you've probably got a unit of Blade Guard on an objective that want to stay alive. The real stratagem that I'm going to talk about here is Commanding Oratory. An epic deed stratagem, 2 command points, so it's fairly expensive. You select 1 Adeptus Astartes Chaplain, so you're probably going to have 1 Chaplain, but you never know. You can't have used a litany this turn, so this is where it's quite useful for a dropping either jump pack or Terminator Armored Chaplain, but also you can save it if you're planning your turn correctly for a Primaris Chaplain who's somewhere on the table, etc. Anyway, I won't go into that. That's fairly obvious. That model can recite 1 litany that has not already been recited that turn. That litany is automatically inspiring and takes effect until the start of your next command phase. So basically, you get to use it outside the command phase. You can use this at the start of any of your other phases, including after you've dropped down or the beginning of a charge phase. This enables you to literally circumnavigate the restriction of it being in a command phase and have your cake and eat it. As I explained, it's great for a Terminator Assault, and I almost feel like it's made for that. The fact that it's always going to be inspiring is also a nice little benefit. You don't have to roll for it, which makes it very reliable. So the last aspect to talk about is probably the chaplains themselves. What can you upgrade them with? Well, they can have lots of different types of relics. You might want to make them more survivable. You might want to give them a better pistol, etc. To be honest, most people won't bother, except for those who want the Benediction of Fury. But there is one upgrade that I do recommend. If you're going to be using your chaplain a lot, you think that you're going to be using him around the table to support 2 or more units at a time, He's going to be central to your battle plans. The Master of Sanctity upgrade is a must-have. Gives him an additional litany, gives him a bit of flexibility. He can also recite an additional litany, which is very useful. You can't use it on the same unit, which is fair enough, but you could potentially give one unit one bonus, and then another unit another bonus, which is a very tasty ability. You can also have the Warlord trait specific to Chaplains, Wise Orator. Each time the Warlord recites a litany, add +1 to the roll to see if it's inspiring. Additionally, if you're going to be using the Command in Oratory stratagem, it costs 1 command point less. It's only cost 1 command point. So again, it's a nice way of, if you're going to be getting a lot of use out of your Chaplain, of making it a lot more themed to your army and a lot more efficient and a lot more effective. The Relic, I'm not quite as impressed with that. The Emperor's Judgment, better off giving him Terminator armor, and the Emperor's Judgment is just, okay, it means that the person's not going to be re-rolling against you, but it's no real big deal. Can make people more likely to flee, but morale isn't that effective in 40k, so I wouldn't bother with that. Benediction of Fury or whatever, I just wouldn't bother with this relic. So that's my lowdown on Chaplains. Basically, they are a nice way of giving effective bonuses to your Space Marines without using librarians or other stratagems. They're really handy. I think they're cost effective as a second support HQ. I love them with my Terminators, with my Ultramarines, and I'm getting some good play out of them as well. Thanks to the flexibility of the litanies of battle, they're also very flexible. You can choose a Chaplain to suit any army you want and any build you want. You've got lots of Vanguard veterans jumping up, using their jump packs. Use a fast moving Chaplain to keep up with them and give them bonuses. Dropping in with Terminators, want to use Command in Oratory so that they can make a charge. Or just give them Catechism of Fire as well that turn, so they can drop in and cause a lot of damage. Drop them in with a Terminator Chaplain, it's great. Likewise, say you're marching up the table, lots of intercessors, some Blade Guard alongside you. Use a Primaris Chaplain and also give him the appropriate benefits that you might want to use. Catechism of Fire, Recitation of Focus. The possibilities are amazing for a Space Marine player, and I would say it's more valuable as well. I mean, you're not going to get 1,000 Sons of Grey Knights shutting you down in the Psychic phase if you had a Librarian, for example. So, highly recommended to take a Chaplain in a Space Marine force. They also look brutal, they add a lot of character to a Space Marine army. They also give you a bit of painting options as well. Instead of painting your army all blue or red and being, fairly bored at the way that there's nothing to break up how they all look, you've got a black armoured Space Marine. Obviously, if you're a red armoured Space Marine, you're probably Blood Angels and probably have Death Company, but you get what I'm saying. It is a great way of having a bit of variance in your army. Anyway, it's good to be back. Let me know what everyone thinks. I love talking to you guys in the comments. Please support my channel as best you can. Please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you all soon. Peace out.